Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next in my series of Mindful Meets. You're welcome on the podcast. You are also welcome to YouTube if you happen to be watching. So today on the Mindful Meet series, I'm delighted to welcome Trisha Lewis. Hello, Trisha.
Hello, Laurie. Good to be here.
Who is joining us from Bournemouth. I like to say sunny Bournemouth because it just always seems to be quite lovely and sunny down there.
Yeah, it's actually cloudy today, but let's just.
But it just sort of it just sort of has a sunny, I don't know, identity about it, and wonderful sound down there. Anyway, so Trisha is a communication and confidence coach, and this is very intriguing. You're going to want to hear what it's all about. She is on an unsquashing mission. And I think really we need to get stuck into that, don't we? So Trisha, can you tell us what on earth this unsquashing mission is all about, please?
Yes, I mean, it's got nothing to do with tomatoes or pumpkins or any of that. It is about my take, I suppose, on imposter syndrome, but I really kind of throw that out there simply as something to get a handle on for your listeners, because I really have got quite a different perspective to bring to all the stuff that they will have heard, learned, experienced in terms of imposter syndrome. And it is really about this thing that we do to ourselves that I call self-squashing, that suppresses we are doing this to ourselves, by the way, with the help, of course, of all the lovely stuff coming at us from society and people, and we'll go into that later. But we are suppressing our true, this is the definition, passion, personality, and power out of a fear that revealing all of that will have us judged as some kind of unlikable show off.
Wow.
So in other words, whereas with imposter syndrome, you might be saying, oh, I don't think maybe I shouldn't take that opportunity. Oh, I don't know, I'm here, but I'm going to get caught out. With this, you're saying, hey, I could nail this. I really know my stuff. I don't know, though. I better not push myself forward too much because people might think I'm showing off.
Yeah.
Honestly, Laurie, when I first started having these conversations, because it was a light bulb for me personally, and I thought, is this just me? It can't be. And then, of course, I was working with clients, and they really got it. And I started talking to people and explaining. They said, "Oh, yes, that's how I feel." So I thought, okay, this is a thing. This is a thing, and it's in many ways a more positive, upbeat way of looking at it, because you are starting from a point of view saying, look, hey, I'm good. I know my stuff. I could be up there. But what a waste to the world that you're not getting out there and showing up to share, basically.
Yes. And I guess that can be as much just in a personal, private setting as in a workplace setting as well, because if we are really putting the brakes on and we are squashing ourselves, then there's a whole host of areas of our life that we find challenging unnecessarily, that we might hold ourselves back, that we just might lack the confidence just to maybe change a few relatively simple things about ourselves. And is one of the hard things recognizing that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, I'm and we'll come into this business of age. I always say this, and people sort of think that I'm saying it as a bad thing, but I'm saying it in quite a celebratory manner when I say I'm 65. It's not, oh God, I'm 65. I'm cool. I'm cool with this. I mean, I'm not cool with some aspects of it, but they're just inevitable. But no, I'm saying it because it has taken many decades for me to come to this realization. My mission, therefore, is to help people spot this way earlier than I did.
Yes.
Way earlier. So, I mean, I was like, you know, you'll understand I was born in a decade where it was very much the thing to suppress lots of stuff. The 50s. I was born in the 50s. Ridiculous. And nobody talked about things like imposter syndrome. Females, definitely, you know, there was a very big divide. So we might be more inclined to hear phrases like, "Oh, don't show off. That's not nice." You know, nobody likes to show off. No, don't brag. No, give other people a chance now. You know, all of those expressions in our little baggage bundle. And you didn't really think about it. It just was there, you know, and then you go into the workplace and again you're aggressive. I heard only today, Laurie, somebody describing, sorry to bring politics into this, but I will very briefly, the Labour Party conference is currently on as we're recording this, and there was a caller into a radio show talking about it and saying, no, they really wouldn't want Angela Rayner to be in charge. Now, you may or may not like Angela Rayner. That, you know, I'm not saying you have to, but the reason this person gave, talking about her as being bolshy and aggressive, just reminded me of, and that's the message that particularly any females, and it happens with males as well, don't get me wrong, but that sense, I'm going to get up there, I'm going to, you know, it all goes into this suppressing stuff that I've just defined, because you think, oh, well, they think I'm, you know, I'm feisty, I'm awkward, I'm all these things, and
yes, or I'm sort of trying to compete with the men, or you know, I'm throwing my weight around. Exactly. Just sort of, and I think linked with that is that sort of idea about in certain environments knowing your place. And yet that doesn't apply. I mean, often there is a gender divide on this. I mean, we're not saying all the time, but I think often, I mean, when I used to work in corporate life, there were a lot of women who were trying to be more visible, who actually wanted to have more of a say. But it was a very, very fine line between actually not saying enough and being reticent, and actually then having negative feedback in their end of month reviews, quarter reviews, whatever it might be, and actually overstepping the mark and sort of trying to be one of the blokes and sort of getting in there on the golfing conversation, and people were thinking, what is she doing? And actually finding that middle ground was really difficult in terms of the right repertoire and sort of how much they said, and I think quite a lot of what sort of held them back was this sense of having to do it right, rather than perhaps being authentic, being perhaps their true self, rather than, you know, trying to fit in with what was going on around them.
I'm so glad that you said that word authentic without apologizing for it, because we've gone through this weird phase where the word authentic kept getting a sort of general apology after it. Oh, you know, overused word, don't like it. And I think, can we scrap all that? Because it's a perfectly good word with ancient roots, that it means exactly what it means. It's only stupid if people don't use it authentically. There's an irony for you. So yes, and it because what happens bit by bit, and this is what I viscerally now can get a real sense of in my past and up to, you know, comparative recent times, you are very misaligned. And so it's almost like you've set up a fight within yourself. I mean, it's not good for you physically or mentally, because there's a sort of lack of congruence between what you think you should be putting out there and what you kind of are, and what you think you shouldn't be, and all of that is like, you know, a horrible sort of wrestling match going on inside your head, and no wonder what comes out and so you walk away from situations like you've been in a meeting or say a networking event, which I think a lot of people kind of will have experienced, and think, oh yes, And you think, what was I talking about? And why didn't I say this? And what was that stuff that came out of my mouth that sounded like some pre-prepared script? And why did I laugh at that person when they were saying that, which actually wasn't funny? And you're just full of a sense of frustration with yourself because you think, I did that. I just blew that, Now nobody might have noticed. It's not like you're in a situation everybody's going, oh, she's being really weird, but you feel it, and you don't necessarily assign it to anything unless you do what I call the forensics on this. So you're talking about, is it difficult to spot? Yes, it is. And that's why I work with people right from the kind of basic foundation stuff without getting on the psychologist's couch. But I mean, stuff comes up like the baggage stuff. But mainly it's just to let people in a supportive environment, and this is what you need to find, whether it's with a friend or a coach, that you can just be utterly yourself with and start saying stuff and think, no, hang on a minute, this is who I am. Why do I say that always? Why do I describe myself as this on my profile? Why don't I talk about this thing that I'm really passionate about? And because that's why do I put on this weird voice whenever I'm on the phone? Why do I, whatever it is, why am I wearing this, down to those details.
Exactly. And I was going to say, this is a lot broader, isn't it, than just what we're thinking, what comes out of our mouths, because it's not necessarily a work environment. You might be going out to lunch with a group of female friends. I mean, I have some clients for whom that is pretty agonizing. What do I wear? Have I put weight on since I last saw them? Who's going to be the thinnest person in the room? Who's going to be the biggest person in the room? What shall I, and all of this stuff goes through their heads. What will they think if I have 3 courses? What will they think if I don't have pudding? And this constant sort of dialogue and this analysis that goes on, and I'm not saying it's just class. I mean, I went through it during my difficult times, but that analysis is paralyzing, and you just kind of get to a point where everything you're doing or saying is about how it lands with someone else, or about what someone else thinks of you, exactly as he said at the beginning, rather than it coming from where you want to be.
Yes. And you bring me to one of my favorite expressions that I use that mustn't be misunderstood. And this is that I advise people, including myself, to get out of your head. Not get off your head, that's a different thing. Get out of your head. Okay, so it is crippling self-consciousness, and I absolutely have been there. And to give you an example, which is why one of my favorite words is curiosity, and it sounds a bit trite, but actually if you have that emblazoned all over you, it really helps, because to be curious you do have to get out of your head. And I remember going to do talks, for instance, and I was at times an after dinner speaker. So I had to go through and people won't believe this, but I have quite a lot of introvert in me. And I know it doesn't necessarily obviously show, but that's the wonder of that ambivert between extrovert and introvert spectrum. We shouldn't ever make assumptions about people. So I would be fine to do the talk, which is the thing that would scare some people, but the socializing around the table with strangers, so I was going through all the motions and saying the right thing and then thinking, please let me just do my talk. Right, great, I'm doing my talk. And then desperately trying to get away politely but quickly afterwards, not even wanting to hear nice things said. It was that crippling that I couldn't even cope with the compliments. I would still be wanting to run away, getting to the car. And once I'm in the car, I'm thinking, phew. But it's not phew, I did a good talk. The talk was never the problem. It was phew, I've got out of all that really uncomfortable. And then one day I thought, this is absurd, because what is happening now, I'm kind of on a surviving rather than a thriving mode. So what can I do about it? And I just started getting braver about not thinking about me and just asking questions and getting nosy, because I'm really nosy, and people like talking about themselves. And then you are out of your head. What happens is they'll say something and you remain really present, and so you're able to pick up on it, and you can very quickly take the conversation from small talk to really deep, interesting talk, because you're present and you're getting all the clues. And there we go. And we've forgotten all that stuff about, what do I look like? Am I wearing the right thing? Am I eating correctly? Am I standing correctly? Is my face looking correct? It's gone, because you're just there with it.
And I used to
spend hours looking in the mirror when I was younger. I were on, and people would say, how vain. But it wasn't vanity. It was a
checking,
crippling self-consciousness.
Yeah. Making sure that everything is kind of as much in the right place as it can be. Yeah. So I'm quite interested to discover why you're doing what you're doing now, because I know that you've done some other things. So tell us what led you to really want to help people in this way, when that happened, and sort of what had led up to it, Trisha.
I have a fairly random approach to life. It's funny, I've interviewed people for, as you know, I've got a podcast and you're going to be on it.
I am.
And I asked them about their sort of what led them to, and they sometimes have this beautifully neat CV kind of world that progresses very logically. No, not me. However, I did, in hindsight, it's fairly obvious that there is a connecting link, which is communication. Because if you miss out all the other various extraordinary jobs that I've done along the way, if you just take the acting, the speaking, I'm also a celebrant, so I deliver funerals, and I also worked with people with dementia in care homes doing reminiscence, which was all about getting stories out of them and being very present in the moment with them to trigger off memories, all of those. So that I was doing all of those things prior to setting up this business. And a couple of them became really challenging because of economics, in terms of I was part of a funded project for the reminiscence work, and of course it was, the council cut it because of blah blah 2008, etc. Plus I always like to challenge myself. I'd also done a degree as a mature student in communication, and I just thought, yeah, you get over this barrier. I said to myself, get over this barrier.
Unsquash yourself.
Yes, something is going on here that is to do with your childhood and various baggage stuff that is saying that you shouldn't set up a business. Business is an evil world. You're an actor, you're a creative person. Don't go near there. Oh my goodness me. And so I thought, no, come on, get over this. I don't think this is a real thing. This is just something you've got into your system.
Can I just ask you, so what was your diagnosis of what that was? What was it? A lack of confidence, do you think? A fear of failure?
I think it was, and this is where, so I'll bring in my little acronym thing, which is the FIBs that hold us back, which stands for fears, illusions, and baggage. So in terms of baggage, it's fairly obvious we all have baggage, and it doesn't have to be huge, big trauma, although obviously for some people it will be. And I have an element of that in my world, but I'll go back to the simple stuff, which was that I had a very, very charismatic, incredibly successful father, who I never really saw, because so it's the kind of poor rich kid violin out at this moment, Laurie. But I think I made and a very unhappy mother, basically, who kept up all the pretenses, looked beautiful, da-di-da. So a bit of a cliche, but what I think I did was I connected the unhappiness of the kind of personal elements of all that with being a successful business person. And I had literally melded those together as one and thought, whoa, you're not going to catch me out like that. I'm not doing that. And it was irrational, totally irrational. And it was when I bit by bit began to give myself a talking to that I spotted that. And I also spotted that I wanted to challenge myself. It was a sort of slightly masochistic thing that I have. I mean, I've done it in relationships, Laurie. So I thought, yes, let's really put myself out there to suffer. No, I originally thought I'll go into being a speaker, but in the business world. Very naive. You can't just become a keynote speaker overnight, despite all my delivery skills and all the rest of it. That was, I kind of got that one a bit wrong. So I morphed, because then I realized, as I was talking to business coaches and all the rest of it, I thought, well, actually, what I've got to offer is all the presentation skill stuff from my experience as an actor and speaker. And then as I'm now trying to set this business up, what is happening to me? Oh my gosh, I'm going down into these self-doubt spirals. I'm trying to climb back out again, et cetera, et cetera. All this stuff is coming up, which I'm having to deal with. And I start to work with people. And I sort of introduce an element of this as I go along organically, because it's obvious that is happening as one of the barriers for people. And then it becomes almost the main part of what I'm doing. And then I write the book and all the rest of it, because it begins to pull together as something quite important to be able to share.
Yeah. Yes. And I think because you've got all that communication ability, the way that you articulate means that it just lands in a very clear, but also a very vibrant way. And I think that a lot of people who are struggling with trying to find the confidence to change are sort of stuck in quite it's almost like psychological sedentary state. It's not necessarily a physically sedentary state, but the brain is kind of not allowing to move forward. And so because of the energy that you give to people, I can imagine that can be quite a catalyst for not only your words to land, but also something a little bit maybe less tangible, but that they really pick up, that says, crikey, I can do this, particularly if they are younger. Well, if they're younger than us, they've got more time. I mean, they can be also in their 60s like we both are, but just to say, yes, you can, and you can take this energy and these ideas, and anyone can, as you say, start studying earlier, make changes earlier, actually find the life that they really want to live, through the energy.
Because the knock-on effects, Laurie, are huge. So without going into my life story, although because I'm now this age, I don't have so many, I'm not really that worried about sharing.
Me neither. But, it just takes a very long time.
Yeah, I just when I think, I mean, ultimately we get where we are and we can't, I'm not full of regrets, because because your life evolves and you take different avenues, and you wouldn't have taken them if this thing hadn't happened, and so blah blah blah. But on a more sort of a slightly more what should we say, rational kind of basis, if I really kind of took some of that away from it, I would say, when I had that opportunity, that was so me, that opportunity, that job thing, I could have really gone for that and I made more of it, instead of walking away to go back to a husband who was pretty abusive, and decide that I could change him, and then spend the next few years realizing I couldn't. Why didn't I stay in that situation, which had so much to offer? Because all the time I hadn't got the, and there are various stories to go with that, but all the time there was this, it's almost as if I was described as shy when I was little, but I don't think I was shy. I think I was suppressing myself because I never quite got that backing to be maybe the more quirky version of me that I think people now see in me. And now when people say you're a bit crazy, I'm just about okay with it. Only just, because it could be a trigger, but I'm kind of thinking, okay, no, that's okay. That's meant as a good thing. And it just means I'm being me. But back in the day, somehow the schooling in those days, my environment that I was in, and then the boyfriends that I chose, which you choose from a squashed place, therefore they're probably not the healthiest of relationships. All of that kind of just kind of layers itself on, and underneath, like a sort of volcano thing, is this kind of roaring fire of you-ness. And that doesn't, by the way, that what I don't mean is that you as an extrovert, as a big out there actor type person, you could be a very quiet introvert person with a very different style to me. It's not about the loudness or the being out there. It's about you being you. But that you core is literally fighting against the hard sort of cover on the volcano and just bumping against it. And actually, what can happen is that it breaks through and spews out in really unhealthy ways. You know, you might end up, like I did, walking out of a job and slamming the door, which was a glass door, and it broke all over the office. This was a long time ago, Laurie. But it was frustration. But I didn't need to let it get to that. I shouldn't have let it get to that. I should have been me, calmly, quite assertively, you know, possibly playing some games, because we have to in life. It's not all about constantly being full you all over the place, because there's a thing called impression management, which we have to do. You know, we have to tweak that you-ness according to context. But as long as the tweaking is done consciously by you, you know you're doing it, that's fine.
And it's done genuinely. And it's done through our own choice rather than through external pressures. You know, and I'm just thinking that so often we can lose a sense of who we are through the life that we end up living. I mean, that it's not uncommon that I will talk to clients about eating, and we inevitably get onto self-esteem, because if your self-esteem is low, it's difficult to feel comfortable with looking after yourself, with feeding yourself well, and turning off that very punitive commentary that you can have in your head. And often the self-esteem is low because, not because anyone else necessarily has really put upon that person, but that person has, through marriage or through work or through parenthood, found themselves in a place where they are at the bottom of the ladder. And everyone around them expects them to be at the bottom of the ladder. It's not necessarily unkind, but there's a sort of a general, I don't know, complacency, you know, about where everyone else fits in terms of hierarchy versus them. And I think it must seem, when I start talking to them, it must seem so difficult to think, well, I'm not actually sure who me is. I know that I'm this to this person and I'm this to this person, but who am I to me? And they don't know.
It's like, I love that. Absolutely. And it's, for ages I was fighting, as I was growing this business, I was fighting to fit into all the boxes that you find thrown at you a little bit when you set up a business. And I was really struggling with that. And then I thought, oh, this is just me being all rebellious. Oh, Trisha, that's typical of you. You're trying to sabotage this before it's even got off his foot. You know, you're doing that whole kind of, oh, nobody puts baby in the corner kind of thing that you tend to do, or whatever. So I kind of blamed myself, or gave that excuse, if you like, rather than what I then realized was the way to go, which was thinking, oh, okay, this is fine. For some people, this is how it works. For some people, this is how it works. for me, this is how it works.
Yes.
And one of the ways it works for me is to keep an element of variety in everything I do. So therefore, words like niching and funnels and all of those things were an anathema to me. I mean, it's just like, don't say that word. I get it now and I don't fight it. I thought, okay, no, that's great. And for some people, this is exactly what they need to do. And to a certain extent, I have found a niche, but I've done it kind of my way, so quite organically. Okay, I don't like marketing. Fine. So how are you going to do this, Trisha? Well, I'm going to do this very organically. I'm going to get a podcast together and I'm going to be part of this community. I'm going to post on LinkedIn in a certain way and meet people that way. Okay, that's how I'm going to do it, you know. And so, oh, Trisha, surely you can't still do any acting work or the celebrant stuff if you're now set up as a communication coach. I took that seriously to begin with as advice, and I was frustrated because I thought, oh no, I suppose not. Nobody will take me seriously if I'm doing these other things. And then I realized, but this is all part of who I am, and this is part of what I bring to what I give as value. The work with people with dementia, I don't mean I'm necessarily going to work with you as a communication coach, but it's very relevant that the communication, raw communication that is required, and the storytelling and all that. Of course I should tell people that's what I've done. And if an opportunity arises for me to do a bit of this or a bit of that, like at Christmas, I'm going to go back out there and do some community groups, do some Christmas shows, because now I'm saying that doesn't make you any less professional or credible.
It doesn't dilute the other things that you do at all. No. And in fact, anyone listening who ever finds themselves saying, I don't do that, or I'm not the kind of person that does that, it's like, well, if inside you wish you were, then that needs to just be part of who you are, doesn't it? And to be,
I love that.
But you know, sometimes we're not that kind of person because someone else around us has decided that we're not that kind of person. And that opens up a whole, you know, other conversation.
I'm not saying it's easy. Yeah, no. I mean, I was, you know, gaslit for years and lots of stuff. So I can't do the whole, oh, woe is me, in terms of, you know, I've been quite lucky. I've never been massively out on the streets or anything like that. But, you know, and I had a very good education and all of those things. But I would say I've had to do a lot of fighting with myself to not be dragged down, and not, you know, all that comparisonitis stuff, Laurie, when you set up in business. But it's not just business. You're right to point out. It's everywhere.
Everywhere. Oh, my clients have it all the time. I had it for years and years. I mean, I still have a tiny bit. I don't think it ever quite goes away, but I just have the techniques to say, oh, hello. No, I don't think so. You know, and it's about, isn't it, observing and understanding, and then turning it around and say, thank you. You can go back there. I know why this is coming out because I'm meeting someone that I knew 20 years ago, or blah, 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 or there's a certain sort of agenda between me and this person. I mean, it's all probably quite nice, but there's a little bit of maybe competition that went on before, or something happened. And of course, you know, the subconscious mind, goodness me, it's like an aircraft hangar of memories and triggers and all that kind of baggage stuff. And you think, really, are you still there? Are you still there? Then it just pops up, goes, oh, you're going to meet this person. This is what I need to say to you now. No, you don't. Go away.
And I'll tell you what you touch on there beautifully, is because I kind of get people to identify their squasher triggers, as I put it, and their unsquasher powers. It's a simplistic way of looking at it, but it really does help, because we all have them. What you said is so true, that I am not about saying to people, oh, we're going to get rid of this, we're going to get rid of all the fears, we're going to get rid of all this inner. No, it is exactly about recognizing it and giving yourself this lovely little press pause, little self-lecture. What's going on here? Oh, it's that thing that happens with me. And it happens very quickly and it's much more difficult to immediately recognize and sort when you are feeling under the weather. So we were talking about this, weren't we, before we started? And I felt a bit under the weather for the last few days, nothing serious, but it reminds me that these are the times where I will still start falling into those, what I call squasher spirals, of self-doubt, or just generally, what's the point? Or, either getting a bit bolshy or a bit kind of, useless and blobby. And it's and I'm better, and I've got a marvelously supportive husband, I have to say, who is also incredibly rational when it comes to this sort of stuff. So Trisha, don't just beat yourself up here, because I think you're a bit under the weather. Just rest, just don't make any big decisions.
You've got the adult voice going on in the conversation, I can see. Yes.
and it's so true. And you come through, and like 3 days later, you wake up and you think, oh my God, why was I feeling like that? I'm on it.
Yeah.
But that's just human. I mean, we have cycles and we have pick up little colds and all the rest of it.
And it's okay. That's fine. But as you say, the recognition, oh my God, the awareness thing has to be the most powerful thing, don't you think, in all of this?
If I could go back and make a chart of, say, PMT through my youth, and the correlation between that and making ridiculous decisions would be highlighted in neon. I mean, it would be so clear, but no way did I ever realize it at the time. And the same with menopause. I didn't even recognize the effects that was having on me until afterwards. But this is because I'm going back a bit, and it's so lovely that people like you, people who talk about the menopause, people who talk about all these things are out there now, because it just didn't exist, did it, for us? It really didn't. And I didn't have a mother who talked about it, although she should have done, because it had affected her hugely. Got to actually mention it. So it just wasn't the thing. It wasn't the done thing in her world. But yeah, that's the thing, recognition and being out there and having ruddy conversations with people and being able to laugh at yourself. I mean, laughter is the best medicine by far.
Yes.
So that's part of the unsquashing thing, is being
able to sort of be aware, but also brush it off. But I also think having the necessary techniques and things to think about. So, and that's what you give people, isn't it? So just as we sort of come almost to a close, just can you give us an idea of maybe a couple of useful things for us to perhaps think about, or if we find ourselves in a place where we're putting ourselves down, is there something that we might be able to say to ourselves that might help unsquash a little bit in that moment?
Yeah, I mean, the first one is just a really basic, hang on, stop. Stop. And then if you can, bring a smile up from your toes into your eyes, the real deal, because it is a magical little trick that your body will do to you. And even when you're feeling utterly miserable, if you do that, trust me, this, Laurie, it really, really has an effect. So if you can get to a place that you like being, for me, that would be in nature. Cliche though that sounds, but it's not, because it's researched. It's the thing, whatever environment you can get into that you enjoy being in, if possible, as near to that as possible. The inner smile thing, the press stop, almost not laughing at yourself, but being able to smile and think, okay, is there any real logical reason for this feeling going on inside me? And you might have one. You might think, well, yeah, there is actually, because I lost my mother 2 months ago and I'm still grieving, or whatever. It might be something really obvious. And then, of course, it's the so stop being mean to yourself thing. And how about, going for a little cycle ride and For me, it would be taking a camera and doing some photography, because it's an incredibly mindful thing to do. So you must, that sounded very, that's not, I don't do that. I don't tell people must.
Rewind, edit.
It's a great idea if you find your thing that keeps you very mindful and stops the spiraling, which the female brain is particularly good at spiraling, because we start off with one small thing and then we've gone into a hideous place within the space of seconds. So try to stop the spiraling by being present and mindful and doing something that you love. Or alternatively, if you haven't got that luxury that day, then say to yourself, look, I've got X, Y, and Z to achieve today. That's it. That's all I have to achieve today. I'm even going to write that down on a piece of paper. 1, 2, 3. I'm just going to stop thinking about the existential crisis that I'm having, or how to change the world, or any of that. I'm just going to concentrate on doing 1, 2, and 3. Tick, tick, tick. Because again, it's mindful. You get into a place where you get out of your head. And in the process, of course, something clicks that you really enjoy, and then you think, oh, I really love doing this. Yeah. It's like I don't know. Is it even doing something like this, a podcast? I mean, that's the other thing, is sometimes talking out loud works and sometimes it doesn't. So it depends who you're talking to and the kind of mindset you're going into it at. So I wouldn't always recommend finding a friend and talking it through, because what can happen is you just layer it, go deeper and deeper, even although the friend is trying to be lovely and helpful. So trying to make it a more practical thing, less world existential philosophizing is a really good tip.
And more sort of tuning in, isn't it? It's like, it's kind of, and by doing those things that you enjoy, you're also then reconnecting with your sense of self, because you're doing something that feeds the mind, soul,
and perspective. You get perspective back, and I think brains, obviously there are exercises you can do where you just brainstorm with a rough piece of paper and pencil, things that you're good at, things that you love, things that you're good at, things that you've got experience in, chuck them all together, go and look at some testimonials, whatever, remind yourself about the things that just bring it back to reality. And that isn't always easy, because if you're feeling down, you're feeling down, and it's not, I never say that this is an easy thing to click yourself out of, but it's almost like you do have to do that little bit of a forced, okay, smile, breathe. Where's the best place for me to be now? I'm going to go and sit outside. I'm just going to go and sit outside on that park bench. I'm just going to look at people because I'm very nosy. And
exactly, because it doesn't matter what it is, does it? And it's but just to be able to reconnect and to be able to think about what is true. Is it just a voice that's coming up from my past, or is it true? How kind of limiting is it for me? And if it's an emotional thing, what actually do I really need to go and do? Do I need to relax? Do I need to run up down the stairs? Do I need, what is it that I really feel that I need in order to be true to my requirement at that particular time? And I think that's also part of the awareness, isn't it?
Absolutely. And almost like maybe you've got people that you see for particular things, purposes, and that might sound a bit manipulative, but it's not. I mean, I have a friend from decades worth of friendship. We don't see each other all the time, but he's a creative person, and when I'm feeling, oh god, I don't like all this businessy stuff, where is my crazy creative person, my actor, my this, my that, and I go for coffee with this person, and we just talk, and I've replenished that little bit, whereas another day it might be somebody else who fulfills another one. That sounds really, I make it sound like I've got these friends in a box that I kind of use, but it's a little bit like that, and it's mutual, and there's nothing wrong with that.
And again, it's about identifying, isn't it? And about oh, brilliant, oh Trisha, you're so inspiring, I feel really quite quite energized to now do my 3 things I have to do today, to go out and to go back and get those done. So Trisha, I'm sure that you've got a lot of the listeners thinking about their own place in their own life, in their own selves, in their own world. So how can they connect with you a little bit more if they would like to?
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I've got a website, trishalewis.com. And it's got all the stuff on there, including a page which is called the Unsquashing project, on which you will find the links to things like my YouTube channel and articles and my book.
Those of you on the podcast, she's waving it in my face.
Of course I am. But I'm such a bad marketeer that any opportunity just to mention it. But it is useful, and it has got practical stuff in it as well. But
it's called what, Trisha?
The Mystery of the Squashed Self. Oh yeah, good thing, because if you're not watching, that was well picked up. And also linked to my recent TEDx talk, which is called Beware the Self-Squashing Prophecy, which is just a 13-minute talk. So it's got all this stuff in it, and it's not just me waffling. It's there, built on experience, not mine, not just mine, but other people's. And it's really intended to have some kind of practical, you can do this stuff in it. So it's all there. It's all there. But also LinkedIn is probably my main thingy.
Platform.
So, yeah. Thank
Brilliant.
you. Run out of words.
That's the word, platform. Yes. Well, I will put all the links in the blurb that go with this, and then people can find you in a number of places. Then there's a platform for everyone, it seems. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Trisha, for spending the time to join us on Mindful Meets. It's been an absolute delight. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And for those of you listening and watching, I look forward to seeing you and talking to you again with the next in my series. Thank you so much. Bye.